The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the friggin' app. It's the top-rated sportsbook app in the App Store. And use promo code RTRS when you sign up. And brought to you by Big Barker Therapeutic Dog Beds. Now proven. We'll have that info for you later. It's good news, some good news. Get yours at bigbarker.com/Ricky. And By Nature Superfood, Superfusion Pet Foods, slow cooked for your dog. Get 20 or cat. Get 20% off your first order at Chewy by using the promo code RTRS20. On the show today, Celtics, Sixers, Game 1, playoffs. Here we are. Every playoff game gets a podcast. Here we are in our own personal hell. My wife said to me as she heard the game, and she was like, "Playoffs? How is it the playoffs already?" And I was like, "Already?" I was like, "This is the season from March." And she was like, "Why?" I don't know, Val. Good question. Before we get going, I want to make a quick announcement. We're going to have new masks in a couple weeks. They'll be black ones. They'll look the same, but instead of being white, they'll be black. But My Buddha Babe, instead of donating to CHOP, for every one we sell, we'll donate one to a kid at Philadelphia Public Schools. So she's partnering with the Philly Public Schools. So those who end up going back to school will have masks. So every one that you buy, one will go to a kid at a Philly Public School, which I think is really cool. Now for something not so cool. Amos and the Chef.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I am Spike Eskin, along with a guy who is in a familiar place as he's been the last couple of years. That is Mike Levin. How you feeling about after that one? I felt like, yeah.
Annoyed.
Yeah.
Annoyed. A lot of good things to hang our hat on and feel good about, and a lot of things to be really, really frustrated about. It's just how hard is it? I'm just going to run through some headlines. Okay. Just running through. How hard is it for this team to make simple passes? Boston is obviously making that difficult. They are long and they anticipate really well. And they're just really active in the passing lanes. And that caused a lot of turnovers. Some were good plays by Boston. Some were just really incredibly stupid plays by us. They had 11 turnovers in the first quarter and a half. And it's just like, that's inexcusable. It was mostly Embiid and Horford and Josh.
Well, and you waste, by the way, a hot shooting start in the beginning. Like when you start 100%. Off 9 or 10 or 10 of 11, whatever they were, and they're up 1 point after like 10 minutes, like that's a problem.
Yeah. This isn't like, you can't score if you don't get an opportunity to shoot. Just hard to do. I mean, they finished the game. The disparity was bigger at a time, but they finished the game, Boston, with 10 more field goal attempts than the Sixers did. And it was bigger for a while there. And it's just the same shit. It takes too long for the Sixers to do anything on offense, and they don't have the ball handlers to make Boston or anyone pay for playing so far up on them, because they're not concerned about getting blown by. They're just not. Like when the Sixers play up on somebody, Kemba just drives by. Dame just drives by. Like it's easy stuff. And the Sixers don't have people that can do that or that are confident enough in their handling to do that. They didn't get to the line enough. Again, I thought their defense did a better job.
Can I stop you with
most of the second
just as you run through the get to the line? How many did Embiid even shoot? Oh, really? He
12.
shot 12 free throws? Okay, well then I consider myself corrected on that. It felt like he did.
Yeah, there were a couple that he didn't get. I was annoyed by the officiating. The Al Horford flagrant was obviously bullshit, and 100% they were going to call that. There was never, once they reviewed it, it was like they see contact. Jalen, holds his face as if he just got
good acting job.
Bashed in the head. He didn't touch him in the head. That's fine. The biggest storyline, because I really do think that this team did a lot of good things well, is that Embiid just did not get the ball. He didn't get the ball. He took a couple of those late threes, so whatever. But like Josh Richardson shot the ball more than Joel Embiid. Alec Burks shot the ball as much as Joel Embiid, and that just can't.
You don't think they're going to win a playoff series with
Alec
Burks as their leading shot taker?
I'd honestly rather it be Alec Burks than Josh Richardson. I never feel worse about myself, the world, certainly the Sixers when Josh has the ball. Like, he needs to not touch the ball. When he gets the shot off a catch or off a cut, great. Love that stuff. Step into it, keep cutting. That's really nice. But when he's operating towards the end of a shot clock because a couple hard hedges allow the Sixers to just get completely blown out of their sets, and there's like 8 seconds on the clock, all of a sudden it's like, well, I guess this is the offense. It's Josh going to work. I just never feel worse about that. It just does not go well. He hit a couple big shots. He's actually a really good cutter off of out of bounds
defense
plays
tonight, I thought.
But he played pretty good defense. He can't do. There's so many times when they do not communicate well, and it seems like always with Josh on double teams when who is going to whose guy off of a pick and roll, and it's like Josh always seems to be on the wrong end of it. It's like, okay, Korkmaz goes over to cover Kemba, and Josh is also covering Kemba, but he's not covering him hard enough to be like, that's an intentional double team. He's just kind of there, and then he's surprised when the ball gets swung to Jaylen Brown or Gordon Hayward, and he's wide open for a three, and that's frustrating. But the main issue, and I'm just running through everything, but the main issue is that Embiid's not getting the ball in the post.
Here's my thought on that. So we're watching the game, and he's obviously great in the first quarter. And obviously they can do more to get him the ball, but he didn't look like the same guy after the first quarter, to be honest with you. One concern I had, and we were talking to Zach about it, is the amount of energy it takes for a low post player to be like dominant low post guy every time, because of the, and Tice will push you, and Canner is enormous. And this isn't me making excuses, because I blame Joel on this, but like, I don't know, man. Like it did not seem like by the end of the first quarter or beginning of the second quarter, the position he was getting was 18 feet away instead of 8 feet away. And like that happened immediately. Yeah. And he's not going to be, first of all, they don't have any pick and roll ball handlers really either. But even when they did run it, he doesn't roll. He just sort of pops.
He rolled more this game than he has in the past. They actually fed him on the roll more times. I don't know how successful it was, but like they executed a pick and roll with whether it was Josh or Burks or whatever. It was a lot of popping, obviously.
And by the way, like I wouldn't mind 16-foot popping. I just like he is, I don't know what kind of shape he can get into. Like I don't know. Everybody's body is different, but like he just, I think I texted Sixers Adam and Mike O'Connor. I didn't mention this. Mike O'Connor from the Ricky will join us later. But I texted Adam like mid-second quarter, and I was like, I don't know. Embiid like looks cooked already to me.
I don't think it's a conditioning thing. I really don't. I think he was doing what he wanted to do until he stopped doing it.
So the question is, why did he stop?
Because they couldn't get him the ball. They were turning the ball over and over again. Horford making passes like just so delicately and like staring it down. It was telegraphing so every single time. And then Embiid does get the ball in the post and decides to do like 18 dribbles. They're going to come over. He's unwilling to pass. We're back. He'd 1 assist this game. That can't happen. He needs to have more assists. He needs to be passing out to shooters all the time. I would rather him just like, I'd rather essentially Embiid in the post needs to be, he's not Jokic, right? Jokic does a lot of operating from the high post. He's not Simmons, who even passes a lot from the post. But he needs to be that. He needs to be the hub of the offense almost all the time. And he has to make people pay for doubles, and when they don't double, he has to make quick decisions and go. And we talk a lot about how few quick decision makers this team has. Embiid is another one of them. Sometimes he just like sits and stares, and he does that. I can't believe he did it again. I can't believe he does this, man. He does that like from the 3-point line, drive, spin, and is always so surprised when he spins back the other way. And there's somebody there right there to take the ball from him. Every time, it happens every time. How does he not know that that's coming? And look, he played great in a bunch of ways. Like he really had a very 26 points on 15 shots, but it's not enough. It's just not enough, and they need to do more. They need to get him the ball more. That comes from passing. That comes from positioning. That comes from Brett diagramming stuff for it to happen. Boston's like read that out was so easy late in the game when they were just like covering Embiid with Marcus Smart when he was at the top of the key, and then he goes down low and Tice switches onto him, and it's like even then, get him the ball. They just it's everybody's fault, man. As always with this team. It's the front office's fault to have to play Alec Burks, who's not a good passer and a very streaky player and not a really good defender, and depend on Josh Richardson to do stuff, and also those guys and Tobias for not being more assertive and making the actual passes, which any middle schooler should be able to do.
You mentioned that the like Al Horford sort of guiding it in, and like that makes me think of two things. Like first of all, the Celtics are more cohesive in every way, just offensively, defensively. They just seemed
certainly defensively. In the third quarter, they stopped being cohesive. They were a lot of like clunky, contested, like dribble around. They got a bunch of offensive rebounding, which really like saved their ass because they didn't play that well. I'm not scared of Boston. I'm scared of us and how much we fuck this up. Boston played well defensively and is long and makes it hard on teams that already have a tough time. And the Sixers' lack of passing and quick decision.
And they have guys that can hit shots and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
they have some guys that can hit shots. Yeah, but I mean, if Hayward's out for any amount of time, he left with a sprained ankle. If Hayward's out, they're in trouble because they just are not a deep team. They weren't deep coming in, and now they're depending on like some very mediocre players to
your Horford point. You know, I don't know if I'm sure you remember before the seeding game started, Brett had said that he hadn't played Horford and Embiid at all together. And here they are.
Weird brag.
Well, but here they are in. Like it's the playoffs, you know, like it's the playoffs and they've never, you know, like Embiid and Horford have been like pretty okay together. And offensively have certainly been pretty okay together. And, you know, they started off obviously wanting to do that high-low thing right away. But then when he threw it away a couple of times, that sort of fell apart. Like the team essentially has like no identity. The only identity they have is a fake one, like the bully ball fucking we're enormous thing. Like it's fake. Yeah. Like they totally. got outworked by whether it was Daniel Tice or Grant Williams. Yeah. Or even like Canner. You know.
Totally. That was obvious when he's in. He's gonna make offensive rebounding plays. They just didn't. They were slow to ball. They like how many times did it feel like the Sixers were very close to getting a loose ball and then just didn't. And that seems to always happen against Boston. It just seems to always happen, and it's so frustrating. Even like Shake had a ball go right through his hands. Matisse had a ball go through his hands, and Embiid is loose with it. Like, it's a combination of being slow and deliberate and also sloppy. Like that can't be all of them. Like how is it all of them? It is a shocking amount. It was very aggravating. The thing that pissed me off the most was like Horford's passes getting tipped over and over again. Like every single one of his passes is getting tipped. Shake got his passes tipped. Embiid certainly. Tobias did a fine job of protecting the ball, and I think got them a bunch of big buckets when they needed to, and got to the rim, and especially early on was getting to his spots. But he was 0 for 3 from three.
He can't only shoot 3 threes.
A lot more volume. A lot more volume.
He just can't shoot 3 threes. He can't. Yeah. I just totally look. The only way this is going to work is with, and it's probably not going to work. But the only way it's going to work is the fucking Dwight Howard magic. And I know they don't have Rashard Lewis and they don't have Hedo Turkoglu and they don't have these guys like these fucking unconscious just hoist it. But they got to hoist it and hope they get hot. Like everyone's got to shoot. It's just got to be Embiid in the middle, and everyone's just got to shoot threes and hope they go in. Tobias Harris, who is their best perimeter offensive player right now, or supposed to be, he can't only shoot 3 threes in 2020 in a playoff game.
Totally. And he even when he did go to the rim, which I appreciated, and he still didn't get calls because he's not a guy who gets calls. Like he doesn't have the reputation of being a guy who gets calls, and so he doesn't get the calls. I'm not saying he deserved every one of them, but if he was a guy who got those calls, Jayson Tatum got a ton of phantom foul calls that he didn't deserve. But because he's a guy who gets those calls, he gets those calls. But Tobias did pass the ball well. He had 7 assists in the first half. That was pretty wild, including the really nice, pretty ballsy pass to Josh at the end of the half that led to a cheap 3-point play.
Mike,
just not enough. It's always
No.
sorry. I'm constantly stopping and starting. It's always. There's never cohesion. It's never easy. It's never like clean. Like the Sixers shot pretty well. They played pretty good offense. They started defending in the second half in a pretty solid way. Holding to Boston to 109 is pretty good. Boston shot 42% from the floor. They had a lot of tough shots. Matisse played excellent defense, like absolutely excellent. Maybe the best defense I've seen him play. Like he's obviously gotten more steals and he's gotten more blocks, but like he kept guys in front of him. He was moving, he was adjusting, and he didn't get a ton of cheap foul calls. And that was absolutely huge. He kept them in the game 100%. He played 33 minutes. He finished the game. He needs to be out there, like a poke and a pick and roll against Tatum. He's the only one, like without Ben, he's the only one getting his hands anywhere and making it difficult on guys. So he needs to play like 48 minutes. Obviously the 3 is tough and the offense is weak, but he cut really nicely off. That's the other thing, is that if they're going to play up on guys, if they're going to play up on ball handlers and make entry passes harder because they're not worried about guys beating them off the dribble, then you've got to use that gravity against them and back cut. And that's what Matisse did at least once on a Joel post up, and Joel made a really nice bounce pass backdoor, and he finished nicely. And so there's got to be more of that. Like if they're going to be the guys to play up on everything, you can't just be like, well, I have to make this pass 25 feet away from the rim, and so I'll just look at it for a while, and like you can hold them off, and we'll just look at it because this is the set. Like it needs to be like, okay, they're doing this, then we're countering that and going to the rim, and they just don't. Too often they don't think about it. They're not communicating, and it doesn't happen.
Mike, do you want some good news? No. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I do.
Good news. No, nobody's hurt or anything. I just we can talk about Big Barker. I had good news. The good news for Big Barker dog beds is the Penn Vet School, the Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine, Penn, did a clinical study on Big Barker dog beds to see whether they worked or not. This is a real thing that happened. U of Penn Vet School did 40 dogs for a month. All the dogs are 3 years old. They're all 70 or more pounds. Penn reveals that the owners reported improvements in joint function, energy, gait, quality of life. They slept better. Like a good percentage of the dogs so they monitored the dogs while they slept to see how much they moved around. Like a significant lowering of the amount the dogs moved around while they slept if they were sleeping on Big Barkers. 15% decrease in increase in quality of life, 17% improvement in joint function. Just incredible. Like it's proof now. Like Penn, that's a real school. Penn Vet. So there you go. BigBarker.com/Ricky is where you get one of these great beds. It's the only real dog bed on the market. And here's the thing. There is no way that another dog bed is even going to submit to this sort of a study. They wouldn't. There's no way. And you get what you pay for. You spend $30 for a cheap bed at the pet store. You're getting a cheap bed. Your dog's too important for that. Go to BigBarker.com/Ricky, BigBarker.com/Ricky. You get the bed, and you get the processed pup patches, a 10-year warranty on this thing. The foam doesn't flatten or they replace it for free. A 1-year at-home trial. Try it for a full year. If you don't like it, they'll give you a full refund. They'll even pay for the shipping. It's made in the USA. Congrats on Big Barker. This is amazing news. So, we've been saying this for a while. Now Penn says, you know what? Ricky Sanchez was right this whole time. Big Barker dog beds. All right. So I feel like this is a bigger thing that you know what? I had a bigger thing that I'll wait for Mike O'Connor on. Can I give you a smaller thing for now?
Sure.
Well, here's another thing. You're talking about Tobias only shooting 3 threes. Like Shake's got to take a shot before, like the first half is basically winding down too.
Yeah. He was pretty non-existent for a while, but he got hot and he got comfortable, and he had a nice drive on Marcus Smart where he finished like through contact and pretty physical there. He hit a couple shots with guys closing out on him. 13 points on 7 shots, and is really nice in your first playoff game. I was impressed by him. I thought he did a better job than we could have expected. Brett kind of had a little bit of a quick leash because of his defense. Yeah. They just don't have enough guys that can fight around screens, and especially when they're dropping Embiid in the pick and roll, they really need guys to fight around screens. And you watch Matisse do it, and it's excellent. And it's like, that's how you're supposed to do it. And Ben also pretty excellent about it, able to fight through and squeak his way in there and like make himself small so he can get through and contest. Josh, sometimes okay, sometimes terrible. Tobias, oh man, Tobias dies on a screen really pretty easily, and also takes a really long way around it sometimes. It's really like he's taking the scenic route. And Korkmaz is also pretty bad at it, and Burks doesn't seem to really care that much. And so they just don't have enough guys to fight through that and be able to do that. And especially with Embiid dropping, that's kind of predicated upon their whole offense. So, I mean, they forced Boston to taking more mid-range, but which is, I think, ultimately a win, but it's got to be a slightly tough mid-range, not easy walk into mid-range.
So you mentioned Embiid dropping on pick and roll. Embiid was dropping on nothing. So when Tice was in there, and he was standing at the top of the 3-point line, Embiid was basically like, I don't even know how he wasn't getting called for a 3-second violation, but he was 20 feet away, which it sort of reminded me of like Rondo. You remember when people would drop like 10 feet off of Rondo, and it would give him all of this, it would, first of all, give him ramp up, and would give him an ability to see. Well, all that space, like I understand why they're doing it, but I also don't think you need 20 feet. Like, I think Embiid could be at the free throw line and be just as effective protecting the rim, and not give all this space to Tice to set screens. I don't think he needs to be as far down as he was.
I agree, and also don't think that was the
no.
reason
I agree,
lost.
But
in a way that's like, it certainly could. I think it could hurt them more. Tice is not a bad 3-point shooter. He was 1 of 5 on the night. They were still a plus 11 in his minutes, and they just have to punish him more. Like they need to foul him out. He needs to start like thinking about his fouls, because Embiid's just too big for him. Robert Williams is a guy who makes a lot of mistakes, and so you need to capitalize on that. Embiid needs to win just every matchup. And when Kanter's in, then you got to have Embiid come in and like put Kanter in a pick and roll with him on Burks or Tobias or whatever it is, so he can be forced to defend in space. And there's these simple stuff like. The things that the Sixers seem to do every time are, hey, there's a mismatch in the post. Let's get it there. And a lot of times it doesn't work. Tonight it worked okay. Horford especially, like the play on Tatum when he posted up hard and then got his own rebound and finished strong and screamed at him. That was certainly cathartic for me and nice, and I wish we could see more of that.
Oh, my God. Imagine how cathartic it was for him.
Yeah, totally. He wants to win the series. Like, he doesn't want to fucking lose his whole team that is like better without him. Like, that he has no interest in that. So I'm glad. I think that was a nice thing to see. I just want him to be able to get more offensive rebounds. I thought he moved his feet really well defensively. Horford, he blocked that Gordon Hayward jumper, and really looked pretty light on his feet. He's
fine defending wings.
He's fine. He's fine. It is a. The reason I like posting up Horford is not always because, he's so good at making, Marcus Smart or Jaylen Brown pay. It's that a lot of times Boston will sort of unthinkingly double, and what a gift that is for them to double Horford in the post, and then he is not as stubborn as Embiid about giving up the ball, and so he's able to then just kick it out really easily. And so I would love to keep doing that, as in post Horford up with the idea of passing and keep spreading the floor and getting open looks at it. But Horford didn't play great. He was a minus 18, a couple tough stuff, but he took 1 3, and like he needs to take more than that. Like, we need to shoot more threes. 9 of 27 is not enough, especially when we're getting killed on the offensive glass. And this is a game like Marcus Smart didn't play well at all. Like he was 0 for 5 from the field. He didn't hit a shot. That's like this is a game they should have won. They really should have won this game. And I don't think that the Sixers played great. I don't think the Celtics played great. I think this is an absolute toss-up of a game, and it seems like they hit the shots. They got the loose balls. They didn't pass like they were learning how to do it for the first time. The Sixers sometimes pass like they're in driver's ed. Like, what are we doing? Like, learn how to be quick, and if they're not going to let you do it, then go buy them. Very aggravating. Very aggravating. And to still be in it and in the game that late is a testament to how good Embiid is. Even when he's not perfect, he's still good. Just his presence on the court is excellent. But then at the end, when Burks misses that free throw that would have cut it to 3, Embiid needs to be strong with that ball. He needs to. Like, I know that this isn't like we're not like the tough guy podcast. We're not like the come on, just be a man podcast. But like, end of the game, you're down 4. You have an opportunity to cut it to 2, and then you can defend really well one possession and then get the ball back with like 8 or 9 seconds left. That was what they were staring in the face. And Embiid takes it up pretty weak and then lets Tatum get the rebound off of that. And it's just like, that can't happen. That just can't happen. It cannot.
Well, we now introduce another member of Team Ricky. That is one, Mike OConnor. I was saving one of my topics for Mike OConnor. Welcome, MOC. Glad to have you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you guys for having me on.
What was your, in the round table, what was your prediction? Was it Celtics in 6 or 5 or something like that?
Yeah, I said Celtics in 6. I feel if I could adjust it now, I'd say Celtics in 5, but...
Wow.
You can't adjust it now.
Yeah.
So
I can't adjust
it.
No.
What do you think that Boston did well in this game that scares you about them, or is it just the Sixers?
I think Boston missed a ton of open looks. The Sixers pick and roll coverage, I mean, like Tatum absolutely toasted it in the second quarter, but like we've all known for a long time, like what the Sixers do in the pick and roll is just leave Embiid on an island, right?
Yeah.
And the Celtics, I think, just missed a ton of open mid-range looks and pull-up threes. And it reminded me of, like, I was watching the game, the Sixers got up 4 in the third quarter, and I was like, man, this is like the opposite of Sixers-Celtics in years past, where it was like, I feel like the Sixers are the better team, but they're just missing all these open looks. And this time it was just the Celtics doing that, and that's what I felt like. So
it hits me as Tatum is going on his, like, fucking tear. And, like, I know we're an anti-Tatum podcast, and especially Mike is an anti-Tatum podcaster. But it strikes me, and it infuriates me. Like, we complain about the front office constantly, totally justified. Complain about the ownership, totally justified. You know, you've been critical of Brett this year, totally justified. But I watch Tatum and Brown, and I think about Tatum and Brown 2 years ago. And then I watch Joel and Ben, and I think about Joel and Ben 2 years ago. And Tatum and Brown are obviously fucking way better than they were 2 years ago. And Joel and Ben, like, if we squint hard enough, we can pick out ways that they're better. But, like, the leaps, it's not the same thing. And, like, A, do you see the same thing? And then B, like, I don't know whether to be mad or, like, think that our guys were starting from a higher floor anyway, or what to make of that. But I watch these guys get better. I watch Pascal Siakam getting better. And I'm like, well, when are our guys going to take, like, some fucking leap after an off season and get better at, like, really good at one thing that they're not already good at?
It's completely accurate, and it sounds like takey, and you might, like, even get blasted on Twitter for saying that, but, like, you look at Pascal Siakam, you look at Giannis, and even Tatum and Brown, it's like, that's what it looks like when guys really love working hard and want to get better. That's what it looks like. Like, you see it. Siakam is a totally different player, and he started from such a lower place than Simmons. And Simmons didn't even play tonight, but
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
But it's also true of Embiid. Like, what could you, like, Embiid might be the exact same. I mean, you could even say Embiid's, like, conditioning is worse than it was 2 years ago. He's a little bit heavier, like, period. And he, like, you could make the argument that he's not quite as good, maybe like 3% worse than he was 2 years ago. They're both, like, stalling out or going in the wrong direction. you're right. It should be among the biggest concerns here.
So then I guess my question would be, and I know what I would think, and obviously it's a combination of all of them, but I would guess I would ask both of you, how much of that is Joel and Ben, and then how much of that is like the atmosphere surrounding them? And like, I'll tell you, my initial reaction is like, that shit happens in the off season. The coach is around in the off season. The team is around the off season. That's up to them. But it could be bigger than that. What do each of you think about like the role of them and then the role of team in them taking jumps like that?
I always think it's everybody's fault. Like, I'm never saying like this is the one thing. I think it should be on both of those guys to take their game to the next level. I think they have improved in individual ways in a bunch of different areas. Ben defensively, Joel getting better inside, I would say, just being more physical around the rim. Ben doesn't take those, like, you could put this as a negative, but like his shot selection is better, Ben's, and like basically decides not to, if you look at his like true shooting percentage and stuff, like he decides to prioritize the shots that he is successful at and doesn't take those like weird 8-foot spinny looping floaters anymore. And so I think they're both more efficient players. As far as like what more things they can do, I would love if they added more parts to their game. I think Joel's a better passer than he was, but yeah, I mean, it's everybody, and I think it would be easier for them to improve if they had a more stable structure around them, and a more holistic offense that they can run stuff through.
There definitely are, like, it's so tough because there definitely are teams where guys where you look at them and you say, this guy would not have become this if he didn't come into this program. Like teams like the Heat or the Spurs or whoever have like this culture that the guys just come in and they get better. Like on draft night, we do this every year where like guys get drafted to a certain team, like, oh, that's going to work out for him. They're going to get the most out of him. And you could never say that about this organization. Nobody. Everybody that comes here, I mean, forget like Simmons and Embiid development. It's just like, aside from developing guys from scratch, they can't even take guys who are fully baked and come in here and like get the most out of them. Like Josh Richardson looked like he was blossoming into like a number 2 option on a decent team last year, and he looks completely lost. And I'm not putting all of that on the team, but like this organization, I'm just saying, is like clearly on the wrong side of like, they're not like, they don't have this like magic pixel fairy dust that they can sprinkle on you and you just like become better, like the Spurs or whoever. It's like almost the opposite of that.
It's almost exactly the opposite. As far as guys forgetting how to shoot, etc. Mike, what do you think that, like, you always talk about how Brett doesn't adjust well in game, in series. What are adjustments that you would like to see from Brett going into game 2?
Stop posting Horford when he's at the 4. I don't like that. He doesn't have like a crazy mismatch, and you have Embiid off the ball, and the Celtics are just going to be able to cover that. They wasted a few possessions. Al had some bad passes, but like it's just not good offense. Mm-hmm. And other stuff is just like I would be asking for like wholesale changes that he would just never make, like tighten up the pick and roll coverages.
You don't think that's even in the conversation to just start switching on everything?
Well, I don't even think they need to switch. I just think they need to send more help in the gap. Like, there is a schematic reason why. Like, if you watch the Sixers, or anybody listening, if you watch the Sixers and you think to yourself, man, why does it look like it's so easy for the other team to get good looks in the pick and roll and it's so hard for us? Mm-hmm. The reason is because the Sixers don't send any help in the gap. They don't have anybody coming over to the nail and like digging down on a ball handler to slow him down or pry the ball loose from him. They just leave Embiid on an island.
Right.
And it's like what I was saying.
On his own sometimes.
Yes, because he's just reckless, and I love that. But like, it's not in the game plan. Mm-hmm. And that's like just a huge thing. Like, Tatum was absolutely cooking in the second quarter. Like, you have to make it a little bit more difficult for him.
Would you start sending?
Other than that,
would you start sending, like, say it's Josh and Embiid in the pick and roll, and you have like Burks covering Brown on the wing? Would you have Burks come and dig down a little bit and then try to get back?
Just a little bit.
Okay.
That's what, like, if you watch the Raptors, you'll see them do that against everybody.
But they recover. They have good defenders that can recover. I don't trust our recovery speed. That's my issue. Is that like, a lot of times when they do help out, like a Korkmaz or whatever, or a Burks or Mike Scott or anybody really, they get stuck in this no man's land where they're not helping and they're not staying with their guy. They're just doing neither of them. And so to me, it's either like, let's blow up a pick and roll or let's force them to take contested jumpers against Embiid if he's like doing some of his trickery to like dissuade those options.
That's fair. I mean, look, I don't know like if they could, if this is like realistic, but maybe they could make it like, you know, on your own judgment. Like if Tatum really has a head of steam going downhill, like dig in there. Mm-hmm. If not, let Embiid try to survive.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the problems they have is that they're not connected mentally. They're just not connected, and they don't. Like there's a thing that happens with teams that play together for a while when a player is going to make that decision that you're talking about, the other guy kind of knows he's going to do it, and it just doesn't exist here, you know, for whatever reason. But that's what makes thinking on the fly like that so difficult for them, because the other guys don't know that it's going to happen.
Do you think they could ever get that? Like, do you think next year if they make like wholesale changes, they could get that?
Well, but think of the thing that you just said. You're like, are you saying making wholesale changes in personnel or wholesale changes?
Yeah, that's what I mean. If they like, because I know you guys have talked about like balancing continuity versus like wanting to blow this thing up, and I mean, just like you look at the championship teams that have this continuity, like what's the answer there? How do you guys balance that?
I think between Ben and Joel and Matisse, as far as like good heady defenders go, they can establish that. And I think Tobias is capable enough, even if he's not athletically gifted enough to do that kind of stuff. I think he will be vocal enough to make that happen. And it's just about like having other guardy guys that can hang in there and fight through screens and be vocal and stuff. I think it's possible. I think probably with a different coach. Every time they look bad, people come after Brett. And that's fair. But it's also on guys to make quick decisions, which they're not good at. Like, simply, they don't have enough guys that can make good, quick decisions. And that is on the front office for giving Brett this offense. And so if everyone said, like, oh, Brett's great, it's just the front office, I'd be like, no, you're wrong. And if everyone said the opposite, it's just the players. Everyone is wrong all the time. It is everyone's fault. They all need to take responsibility. Embiid needs to demand the ball more and be the guy that he thinks he is if he's going to actually carry this team over the top.
I'll give you an important truth on that in a second. First, I want you guys to look at this dog.
It's a great dog.
Isn't it?
Cute dog.
Isn't it a great dog? So that's a new Good Boy Club member, Johnny Rico. What a fucking name.
Solid.
I like
Johnny Rico, by nature, pet foods. Johnny Rico is enjoying the benefits of slow cooking and super fusion. Fucking love Johnny Rico. Also have a couple of cats, Good Girl Club members, Wildcard, and Walter Jr. Is Walter Jr. a girl cat name? Walter Jr.? I don't know. By nature is the best pet food there is. It is cooked slowly, slow cooked. So the nutrients, it is more nutrient rich. Your small cat, your small dog, or your normal sized dog. What's the word? I'm always looking for the word. What happens when you eat food and digest it? Your dog or your cat only has like 45 minutes to digest food, whereas you have like 4 hours. So it's got to be more nutrient rich. That's what slow cooking does. And the ingredients they use is super fusion ingredients like apple cider vinegar and spinach and blueberries and ginger and coconut oil. Just better for everything. Better for joint health. Better for coat support, skin support, heart. All that stuff, immune system support. By nature is legit. Here is the greatest thing. You read about pet food recalls all the time. 40 years, 0. The company making By Nature pet food has been around for 40 years and not had one root recall ever. Never. So if you get it for your dog or your cat, send me a picture. Put them in the Good Boy Club or the Good Girl Club. We're even going to give you a discount. Go to Chewy and buy it. If you buy pet food, you know what Chewy is. Use the code RTRS20. You'll get 20% off your first order of By Nature Pet Foods. If you want to go to By Nature Pet Foods, learn more, go there. They have plenty of info there. But all the info is what I tell you. Rebel eats By Nature Pet Food. Now Alabama eats By Nature Pet Food. And you should too. Again, Chewy, code RTRS20 for 20% off your first order. By Nature. All right. So you asked if they make wholesale changes, can they get that connectivity and that sort of here's the thing, they can't make wholesale changes. Like it's not possible, especially with what's going to happen with the salary cap. Like if you thought the Tobias contract, and Tobias is a fine player. I feel like Tobias is the new Brett Brown. You have to do the look. He's a nice guy and a good player, but like that's the Brett Brown. Tobias is the new Brett Brown. I'm not qualifying it anymore. If you thought Tobias's contract and Horford's contract were bad before this happened, they are fucking disastrous now. And even if, here's the thing with amnesty. People talk about amnesty clauses all the time. And Michelle Roberts has said as much that the CBA is like basically cooked, but they're going to come up with a new CBA. And I would not be surprised if there's an amnesty clause. The thing with an amnesty clause is the team still has to pay that salary. That salary still exists. It just doesn't count against your cap. So if you're in a world where these teams like are not making the same money they were, if you think they're going to spend like they're just going to take Al Horford's $100 million and just pay it to have him not play for the Sixers, you're fucking crazy. It's not going to happen. So, like, do I think they could get rid of one of those guys? I think they could get rid of Horford because I think another team could talk themselves into the value of Al Horford because he could be missing piece type guy for a team.
Sure.
You know, Tobias Harris can't. So the reality is they're going to have largely this team. I mean, I guess you could say Tobias and Richardson could be gone, but I think most of this roster is going to be here next year. It's really just who they hire as a coach, and if Ben and Joel like really just fucking buy in.
Yep.
That's my opinion on it.
The only changes they can make are bad money for bad money. You know, like.
But some bad money would look so much better here than Horford's bad money.
Yeah.
Even though he has been like mostly fine lately, it's just I don't blame him as a guy in particular. It's really poorly built. How do you feel about Korkmaz barely playing and Mike Scott barely playing?
I don't think it's Korkmaz's series. I just don't think I don't think this is for him. He's just going to get cooked on defense too much, and Boston's just so good at closing out the shooters. Like. Yeah. I don't know if that's the number one thing, but I think that's part of the reason that they're like always number one in like opponents' 3-point percentage. And Korkmaz just can't put it on the deck and can't beat those closeouts. I don't think it's a series for him. I think like honestly missing Glenn Robinson third, like he would have been better than Korkmaz.
Sure.
Mike Scott, I don't know. I think he could have a moment. He could be decent in this series, but Korkmaz, I just don't think it's for him.
Can I say something takey about Glenn Robinson III? And I have no information on this. But, like, when you have two injuries that don't show up on film and you already talked about you not being happy with your role and you're an unrestricted free agent.
That was 6 months ago, though.
Unrestricted free agent.
Sure.
Team he's not going to be on next year.
Probably.
Already expressed displeasure. Took 6 weeks to get here. I'm just saying, my guess is Glenn Robinson III probably ain't rushing back.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That's
is that rule still in place? I forget what it's called, that you can't sign back with a team that traded you away.
Yeah, something like that. There's like a date.
So I was going to say he would have like committed to the Warriors already.
Right. Yeah.
They would have just taken him right back.
For sure. I would give Korkmaz a shot in this series, even though, especially without Hayward, if he's out for a game or two or whatever. I think Korkmaz can do fine enough on Marcus Smart or Brad Wanamaker to where you can play him a little bit, and you just need a guy that has a quick trigger. And Shake, I think, showed it a couple times tonight and was very necessary, but I would love to have a little bit of like slow, weird, sort of zigzaggy Korkmaz to just like do something with the ball. Because he is a guy that at least does things fast in a way that other guys don't. Even though he himself is slow, he makes decisions a little faster than that. So I think I would give him a shot.
A quick Brad Wanamaker take. Like, we search...
Huge head.
What's that?
Huge head.
Oh, big head? He's got a big head?
Massive head.
I've got a big head, but I found out, like, John Ritchie, who I work with, is like a fucking size 8 hat.
Yeah, it's a different
world.
Different ballgame.
Yeah, I'm 7.5. I thought I had a big head, but 8. Jesus. What was I going to say? Like, we're like a minus 70 every time Embiid steps off the court. How do we find a fucking backup? We can't find a backup anywhere, even though Centers are not valuable at all. Here are the Celtics playing with Brad Wanamaker's backup point guard, and they're the 3 seed, and they're going to beat us in fucking 5 games. Like, why is this so hard?
They always make it harder on
Yeah,
themselves, for sure.
Yeah.
I really am not scared of Boston.
No,
I'm really not. They're a thin team. They're thin up front. They have their whole game plan revolves around Tatum and Brown and Marcus Smart being just like unstoppable on both ends of the court. Kemba didn't hit shots tonight. He had enough mid-range, but he didn't hit any threes. And he had a couple nice finishes. But I just think that like tightening a couple things up, making a couple simple decisions with the ball, and stop giving Josh Richardson free reign to do whatever he wants. I think this team really has a chance to bounce back. They should have won this game. I'm probably going to say that next game when they lose by 9.
I'm worried about them quitting. I'm legit in the bubble. I'm worried about them quitting.
I mean, I wouldn't blame Embiid. Look, again, it's his fault for not demanding it more and being more assertive and getting better positioning and stuff. But I wouldn't blame him if he's like, why did I not get the ball in like 7 straight possessions?
But I got to tell you, man, that's like Kevin Durant shit, man. Like, if he was fucking in there destroying people, he would get the ball. That's what the best.
He was though.
But if you're the best player, I've just never heard of like LeBron or Kawhi or Giannis being like, we would have won.
Those are all guys that
I just couldn't
take the
get
ball
the
on the
ball.
perimeter. Those are the ball. They take the ball on the perimeter. He needs help because we don't want him. Also, a guy that takes the ball on the perimeter. He's a guy that has more handles than Embiid. You don't want Embiid. He's too big to be like clunking around through the lane because they're gonna do what we talked about already, which is like double him easily on the dribble. And he's got to work to get better positioning. And if the Celtics are stopping that first initial pass and then there's like 11 seconds left on the shot clock, then they're like, well, we don't have time to get on the ball, so it has to be Josh Richardson dance time. And now it's like that's not what anybody wants.
It's both of those things. Like, yes, Embiid, like I was frustrated in the second quarter when Time Lord checked in, and Embiid should have just like thrown him around, and he hardly put up a shot in that quarter. But also, like, the Sixers might have assembled a team of like the 14 worst entry passers in the history of basketball. It's like unbelievable.
Cartoonish.
And like you watch possessions. I think who was it? I think John Hollinger tweeted that like Embiid received 1 pass from a teammate in the final 6 minutes. Like they pass it to him 1 time. Like. There were just possessions late in the game where it's like, all right, Alec Burks has the ball and Marcus Smart's just like hounding him, so he swings it back to like Richardson. Then Richardson like curls up, and then he has to give it back to Burks. And it's just like nobody can like get a pass off into the post. It's unbelievable.
It's everyone's fault. It is absolutely everyone's fault. I do want to just call out the Embiid drive on Tice where he finished on baseline and went up and under was just an incredibly difficult play, like Julius Erving level difficult, that he made look so easy because he's that big and talented.
So I wanted to end on a high note, and I wanted to ask you guys a question. And I want you to rank these things 1 through 4 in your most likely to least likely that you could do. And the preface is, I don't. Oh, Mike knows what's coming. I want you. Let's say that you know how to ice skate. Like, you know how to ice skate competently.
Sure.
So, coworker of mine, and just a sweetheart of a guy, and one of the hardest workers I've ever been around in my life, Elliots Tweets.
He's getting dunked on a lot for this.
What's that?
Getting a lot of dunking on his head.
He doesn't fucking care. Like, it was funny. Like, I looked at Twitter last night, and I was like, what is everyone having a meltdown about? I was like, oh, Elliot said that he could fucking hit a 2-pointer in an NBA game. Like, come on, relax. But so Elliots tweets last night. This has been a big source of discussion. I could maybe score a touchdown. I could luck into a home run. I could probably get 2 points in an NBA game. I could play hundreds of games of hockey and never, ever score a goal. It looks impossible. So from each of you, I would like to know the thing, like your ranking of the thing that you think you could pull off, assuming that you got like some opportunity within a full season of the sport, but it's a competitive version of the sport.
Tied for last would be hockey and baseball.
Luck into a home run.
Yeah. I don't know that happens. I could luck into a walk. Probably not a home run. Football's tough because if they're playing a zone defense and they just like don't guard you, like you could just sort of camp out in the end zone if they're
Like
not
Lucas,
playing like bump and run.
Yeah.
Just like so hopefully no one sees me. Like maybe I crawl on the ground for like army crawl there, so if no one looks.
Yeah.
But that's obviously a very physical game and tough. Basketball, you know, you can hit a shot once in a while. That's probably the easiest one.
Mike?
Yeah, no doubt basketball is number one. The real question in basketball would be, can you get the ball across half court?
No. Shake Milton
Easily,
can't even
they would
do
like,
it.
Shake can't do it. So how am I going to do it? Like, I could score more points than times I could get the ball across half court. Number two, I'm like torn because I would just be so afraid of getting knocked out in an NFL game.
Sure.
Like, it would have to be like the play. I can only remember one, like Jordan Howard caught a screen against the Bears and like walked in from the 25-yard line. If it's not that exact play, like I'm toast.
Yeah. I'm running a lot of patterns down the sideline, so I can just I'm out. Don't touch me. Yeah.
So I think last is baseball just because if you like shorten it by 100 feet, I don't know if I could get it.
Yeah.
I truly have no idea.
Yeah.
But yeah. That was the most ridiculous tweet I've ever seen.
Like,
I could do all these things.
Okay.
I could do.
Here's what I would say. And by the way, I said on the air today, my favorite thing about Elliot is I was walking my dog one morning. It's like 7 a.m. And he texts me and he's like, I'm in a debate with my friends. Do you think I could beat Zion in a 5K? And I was like, definitely. I don't think Zion could actually. I found that like pro athletes, football players, basketball players, most of the time aren't used to running like that far. So I thought he could. So this was
I think I would take Zion.
Oh, I would not. Zion? Elliot?
He's a professional athlete. If he had to do it, he would do it.
I'm saying no training.
He's 19 years old. It doesn't matter.
That dude can't even run twice up at the court without grabbing his shorts, man.
So incorrect.
No. Here's what I will say, and I've talked to enough football and basketball players. The idea to them of running a mile or two is crazy to them, like straight. Like they don't do it. It's a completely different skill. I think Zion would be. I don't even think Zion could run a mile. But what I will say,
insane thing, just genuinely insane thing to say.
Right now,
you should have your license. What if you had a license? I would revoke it.
Have you seen how fat he is right now? Come on, man.
Oh my God.
Not
professional basketball player, 19 years old. He can run a mile.
He could run a mile. The 5K question is interesting. I actually think it would be close.
Elliot could run like 8-minute miles. So in a 5K, 24 minutes. I don't think Zion could do it.
You're right that it's very different. Like I've had times where I'm like in a run, like I'm running, or I've had times where I'm like playing a lot of basketball, and when you try to go from one to the other, it's not the same. What
I will say about Elliott's tweet is that I do believe that most people reading it do believe that if they were given the enough opportunities, they could score 2 points in a basketball game, and they could get a yard in a football game to get a touchdown.
A yard doing what?
I don't know, like it's a goal line fucking stand.
No, at a goal line. People are so stupid, man.
Okay, you can read. When are you writing? Right, like after Wednesday's game, probably. Is that your next piece for us?
I mean, I'm normally on Wednesdays, but actually it'd be good to have Wednesday's game. I don't know. I'm good with either one.
Okay. Mike O'Connor, you can read him at RiceRickySanchez.com. Thank you for coming on, buddy. It was good to have legit voice.
Math.
I hate this team. I hate this team, and they're winning the series.
You still think
they should? It's just not. It's not hard. I'm not asking them to do crazy stuff that they shouldn't be able to do. Easy stuff. Simple shit.
If they lose, are we a Rockets podcast or a Thunder podcast? Whoever wins
comes
that
out.
series.
Yeah, whoever comes out. I would say if we lose early enough, we're a Rockets Thunder series podcast, and
that's right.
And then we're whoever wins. So get ready to write about Covington again. All right, we'll talk to you on Wednesday night. Are you down with TTP?
Yeah, like this.
If you don't fuck with me,
then I won't fuck with you. If you don't fuck with me,
then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
then I won't fuck with you.
But if you fuck with me,
I'm gonna fucking kill you! That's the plan B.